you know what? It isn't always easy to do the big things. It's not always possible to kind of move house, do the promotion, it's not always possible to do those big things, but the internal micro shift, and people don't pay attention to those because they want to see the external metrics. We're so in a rush, to meet our outcomes in our society. We have forgotten how to slow down and pay attention to what we actually need day to day, to take our inspiration from nature, to listen carefully to actually who we're being day to day. And that's where that deeper shift comes into, so it's not always a big kind of external transformation. It's often the smaller internal shifts into a more peaceful, self-compassionate mindset that allows you to see more joy, bring more gratitude, that abundance mindset where you look for things to be grateful for.
Hi, and welcome everybody to the Endo Fertility podcast, where you will be empowered to learn how to thrive and conceive with endometriosis. If you want to understand more about your endometriosis, how it can affect your fertility, and how you can personally take action to optimize your health and life, then this is the place for you. I am your host, Lizzie Alexander, founder of the Endo Fertility Specialist. Join me every Wednesday as I dive into topics that will support and guide you, from knowledge about endo and conceiving to nutrition, lifestyle and mindset, pain management to assisted fertility support, functional nutrition and testing, and much more. Together, we will explore a holistic approach to healing that equips you with a toolbox full of diverse strategies to help you manage your endo and enhance your fertility journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy listening. Alice, welcome. I'm really, really happy to have you on the Endo Fertility podcast, and really excited today because I know that it's the first time that we're actually seeing each other face to face, isn't it? From the phone. So that's really exciting. And you've got so many amazing things that coming up soon that really, really want to chat about. And this is the first podcast interview actually of season 5. So I'm, welcome.
Yay! Well, I'm honoured to be the first of season 5, and how amazing that you've done 5 seasons of your wonderful podcast.
So first of all, let's start with a little bit about you, a little bit about yourself, your fertility journey, and kind of like what led you down this path towards, your coaching, and we'll get onto that in a minute.
So I started trying to conceive a year or so after I got married, really kind of typical story, I suppose. And although unlike most people who say, you never expect to have a problem, I did always suspect that I might have problems because I had never had a regular period. I'd always had like a few other hormonal symptoms, just like acne and those are the 2 main things. And so when we started trying to conceive, I had been on the pill for years and years, as so many of my generation were put on the pill to regulate my periods. Never investigating the root cause. So really helpful. But anyway, when it came to trying to conceive, I then just thought to myself, because I'd heard stories, sometimes people struggle and it might be really, really difficult. It might be terrible for your relationship and all of this. And I was really worried about that happening. So I sort of always preempted it, went straight away to the GP, and I was like, right, I want to have a baby now. Am I good to go? What do I do? Which I guess is not normal. Most people just get on with it. And then, if there's a problem, then go off that. Anyway, I'm glad that I did go straight away because she said, well, let's have a scan because you've said you've never had a regular period. So let's just see what's going on. Anyway, long story short, that eventually, quite quickly went into a clinical setting, really, where they told me I had PCOS, and that's why I'd never had regular cycles. I had a fibroid, which needed removing, so I had an op to remove that. Then I went straight into ovulation induction. But knowing what I know now, I just think, oh God, why did no one sit me down and explain to me, how to look after myself, nutrition, lifestyle, everything, to actually support my body to function in the way that it was capable of doing, actually, instead of just going straight into that treatment. So anyway, I ended up having 10 rounds of ovulation induction. And that was a combination of an NHS gynae who put me through ovulation induction. And if anyone hasn't heard of what that is, essentially it's basically half of an IVF round. You still do all the injections, you go through all the scans, but then they just send you on your way home to have timed intercourse, which is the least sexy sex that anyone has ever invented. And also, really difficult and stressful with your partner, and it's just horrible, basically. It was awful. So this is all my kind of on paper what happened fertility-wise, and then I'll explain kind of how I came to coaching. Just to finish off what kind of happened on that story. So after those 10 rounds of unsuccessful treatment, and then eventually I was put with an NHS fertility clinic after being with the gynae, and then they wanted to carry on. They were like, it's probably going to happen. Let's carry on. You've still got some rounds to go with your ovulation induction. And I was like, I cannot keep doing this same thing. I think we need to move to IVF. And they said, right, well, that'll be another year or so waiting because it's a different clinic, which I had not got the memo about that. I did not realize that because I thought once I was in that clinic, I would be on my way, And so as soon as they told me it was going to be another year, I was like, I can't wait anymore. Let's go to IVF. So we found the money and we went to a private clinic, and I did IVF, and I had a successful first transfer. So I had my first baby after that. I'm very aware I've been talking nonstop for quite a long time.
No. And I think it's really important that people understand that story behind why you're doing what you're doing, because it gives them an understanding of, that you've been through that. You've got that empathy. You've got that understanding that the physically hard things, as in the really unpassionate sex, which is just awful. But the mental side, what was the hardest part for you?
So this is the thing. This is what led me to doing what I'm doing now. I think what was the hardest part for me was actually like relatively earlier on, because I'd always sort of been able to achieve what I wanted to achieve in life. I had kind of been, just couldn't understand how I was doing all the things right, and I had at that point gone and sought other information, and I had done all the research. I saw a nutritionist, I was going for acupuncture, I was taking my supplements, I was just doing all the good things, right? And nothing was working, and I was losing my mind. I felt so isolated, and I had no support at all. And apart from the NHS gave me some counselling, which was useful, but it didn't give me the mindset shifts, the belief patterns, the internal narrative changes that I really, now I know, needed to radically change how I felt through that chapter and find a way of actually being at peace with whatever was going to happen. So I know that can sound like it's impossible to achieve this state of mind, but I know that it is possible, because that's how I, fell into what I do now, because I ended up really going down a kind of creative healing path. Like I discovered self-compassion, I discovered personal growth, I discovered spirituality, and it really did radically transform how I felt day to day. And I was looking around being like, where's someone teaching people how to do this? There was nothing. Like there was no one speaking specifically to the fertility community. There wasn't even a community at that point, but there was no one speaking specifically to people going through infertility how to do that. And so after I had, kind of had my first baby, I'd actually written all the way through that experience. I'd just written everything down on my laptop. So I had this massive word I didn't know what to do with. I wanted it to be a book, and one day it will be, but in the end I thought I'll just start putting it on social media. Maybe, a few people would benefit from that. And that's, where it all started back in 2017.
Oh, amazing. I think that's amazing that you got it down, you've got it out there, and you've got so much to share. And just listening to you of how you're right, it is the mindset. It's how you approach what you're going through. It's how you come to terms with, is this the last time? Am I going to stop? If I stop, am I happy with that? Do we carry on? All those decisions. And if we carry on, where do we find the money from if we're doing it privately? And
and can we afford this? And am I okay if it doesn't work? Am I sitting, all those questions. It's so hard. And if you then only have you and you don't have friends going through this at this time, it is so isolating. So
Yeah.
isolating.
Yeah, and it really was. And I found that I ended up, I always say, like, it was like I was sort of ticking off the people that I felt like I could talk to about it, because I felt like I couldn't really, Simon, my husband, we were going through it together. So he was going through his own thing. And as much as we did have a good relationship through it, he couldn't give me everything that I needed. And I was also dealing with it really differently. I went down that kind of personal development path, which he wasn't really on. And, then there was my family, and they were lovely and they were supportive, but also, like my mum and dad, they wanted it to work too. So I was kind of didn't want to sort of burden them. And then there was friends who were either having their babies or, I had one friend who was going through it too. But I remember really specifically sitting down and having a conversation with her over dinner or whatever we were doing. And I remember really like filling out all of my fears and anxieties and thoughts of, all the things that we think onto her. And of course, she was going through it too. So she actually said to me afterwards, to be honest, I found that hard because it kind of mirrored all the stuff that I'm going through. And I was like, oh God, sorry, I didn't want to, so I was like, oh, I got nowhere to kind of express what I wanted to say, but at the same time, get the resources and tools that I needed to actually navigate it,
So did that then inspire you to go, do you know what? I want to do something about it. How did you then find out about coaching and become a coach? Were you already a coach? Like, how did you?
I didn't know what coaching was really. I've never really know what it was. All I wanted to do was share the stuff that had helped me. That was literally what I had no plans to turn it into my business. I had no plans to make it a course, nothing. I just wanted to help people. And so it started with that, just started saying, look, I know you're feeling these things, but what about if you reframed those thoughts into this? And I would share these bits and pieces. But then as I was doing it, realizing there was a whole other piece, which was that society was way behind in terms of awareness and didn't really understand how to support people going through fertility. So then I was raising awareness and speaking about it and all of that. And so my profile raised a bit more. And then as I was doing all of those things, I just had more and more people who were asking me, like, so when you say reframe this, what do you mean? And what do you mean when you say you found acceptance before you know how it ended and all this stuff? And there was, there was a lot of conversation about that in my DMs on Instagram. And so I started, I did an event in London. I just called it Taking Ownership. And I booked somewhere for a couple of hours and I ran my first workshop. And then it just sort of snowballed from there. And I realized it needed to be a course. I was like, this is a course. This is like a process. And I kind of put my kind of geek hat on and I was really like, right, what did I do? Like, how exactly, step by step, did I go from absolutely overwhelmed, exhausted, like the thought of it never working was horrendous, to actually, this is going to be okay. It's going to be okay, whatever. How did I get there? And I really looked at what happened with that. And I put together this course and I ran it for the first time in 2020. That was before I qualified as a coach. I just said, I'm not a coach, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but I can show you what I did if you're interested, basically. And then over 100 women were like, yeah, we want to learn. So was together for the first time. It was amazing. And then after that, I was like, I want to do this. I just want to do this, like always, because it was so transformative for everybody. And so then I discovered what a transformational coach was, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. Oh, that's who I am. But then I got
the piece of paper.
I got my piece of paper, and actually it was really, important to get that and to, really elevate and take what I was doing to the next level. And I'm much more aware and conscious now about how to support people really effectively. But yeah, that's the story.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing. It's amazing how your own journey has then come on and helped so many women, that you've been able to kind of like unpick what it was that you kind of like went through and then been able to turn that into a course. I think that's fantastic, because not everyone has that clarity to kind of bring, or it takes them a long time. I would say it's amazing.
Thank you. Well, it did take quite a lot of time, but it was I really have to do a deep dive on exactly what it was and all the different kind of little pieces, because there are layers to this, and I think the thing is, when people are talking about mindset or talking about well-being, it really has to link up. Like, there can't be just, you can't really go, but yeah, no, I'm looking after my mindset, I'm doing a meditation every day. It's deeper than that. It's your internal narratives, it's your belief system, it's, who you are actually being. And it's your fertility story and how you're managing it is linked with every part of your life and everything that you've been through to this moment. And, looking at your future, what you want your future to look like, and working out, how do I do that when I don't know whether there's going to be one baby, two babies, any babies? How do I envisage a future when I don't know what that looks like? And that's what you work on too. So I just find it like endlessly fascinating to do this work.
I think that's amazing how that you can. I'm just thinking of me having gone through this journey. I could have done with you a couple of years ago. And in fact, I think I am going to come on some of your things. We'll talk about them in a bit. And I'm like, yeah, I still need the support. I just think that is amazing, because so many women, when you're so focused on, I just want to have a baby, I just want to get pregnant. And even they just focus, me included, on this, I just want to get pregnant. And you don't think about all the recurring steps after that. Society almost makes you believe that having a child is what you need to feel fulfilled. And I know I've also done courses as well around this kind of like, what do you want from life? What is it all around having a child? Are you being fulfilled from other things? Is it just this one thing that will make you a whole person? And I think, if I'm right, that's kind of like where you're coming from. It's not just, it is that your belief system. It's like what you think of yourself. Are you being true to yourself? That kind of.
Yeah, but it also, what it is looking at, like, you can still act in accordance with what you want. You can still do all the things that you really need to be doing to optimize fertility, go to your clinic appointments and do all the things, but you can remove big elements of anxiety and fear and doubt when you understand what anxiety, fear, and doubt actually is and how your brain is working. And what I find just absolutely mind-blowing is the plasticity of the mind, neuroscience blended with a kind of layer of soul work, which I weave on top of everything I do. Because carrying it all ourselves is too much. It's exhausting. There's a part, I believe, that we just need to go, I can't carry all this. I need a higher power to take some of the pressure off me. People may or may not subscribe to the idea of that, but if you're open to it, if your mind and heart can be open to it, you can bring in an enormous amount of comfort and more joy to your life.
And have you got stories around that? Because obviously then you started in 2020, and then you've run this every year, is that right? Every year since?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
So kind of like, if you got a story around this with a client, multiple clients, where they've just made this radical transformation and it's just helped them move through this path, whether they're trying to conceive naturally, whether they're going through IVF,
many stories. So we have pages of stories of things that people have found and discovered and really uncovered, I would say, like, about themselves and about what life is actually about. It's actually kind of tapping into a deeper meaning of who you are and why you're here. And I remember one of my clients kind of saying that she had been putting off applying for the promotion for ages because she was worried about whether or not she would get pregnant. And then through the work, and really not even that long into the work, it's only a 6-week course, but quickly seeing a new perspective and quickly seeing, oh, hang on a minute. So if I'm not living my life now, if I'm not going for that promotion, what am I doing? I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm not putting my life on hold anymore. And of course that's not going to work for everybody. It's so important to say that, everyone's unique. But anyway, the long story short, she got the promotion, she got that job. She was, thrilled with that shift in perspective, which then changed her life, because she was then in a different role that was more aligned. She felt happier. She was, where she was supposed to be at that point in her career. And it's not that we see changes across the board for everyone, but it's that the smallest things could also be the biggest things. You know, I've had people move house because they've realized actually they really want to live by the sea. So they've put their house on the market and they've just moved. And it's just that kind of, you know, your energy can get really low. You can get very exhausted by all of this. And it becomes quite stagnant because you feel like you can't, you're on hold. Literally, you feel like you're on hold, you're waiting. But then the energy is so slow and heavy. And, you know, what you really need actually often is that reclamation of your spark of life. But it's that kind of reignition of your energy internally that then supports you to see a different perspective and make those, you know, changes. And once you've done that and your nervous system is kind of reset, you're able to actually truly relax. You know, you're not trying to because someone's told you that you need to relax because that improves, you know, that improves fertility outcome. That doesn't work. You actually have to, you know, pay attention to what your inner self is calling you to actually do in your life and realign, you know? I know that can be hard when you're in the middle of it. I really do. And it's challenging, but we work around that. We work with people to find out what can you do in your.
And I think it is really important to have that self-reflection because it's hard when you do it on your own. I'm just thinking of myself having 7 years, you know, primary and now secondary. And it is that constant in that stagnation. And there are times where you're like, okay, so what are we doing? You know, and I know when I got pregnant with Ethan, my son, it was everything was on a hold. And I think at some point we kind of went, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, why, instead of not booking that holiday or not doing this particular thing, because it was like, oh, what if I'm pregnant? We can't do that. And then it'll be a waste. It's like, okay, let's sort it. Just let's get on with life. And I remember I was like, oh, I'm not going to. One of the things with trying to get pregnant, everyone was like, no, you shouldn't run. You shouldn't run. You should be a runner. And I'm like, for goodness sake, I like triathlon. I like running. I was like, sod it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to get back into it. And I did. Got back into it. And actually, funnily enough, when we found out I was pregnant, I think I'd just taken part on like this crazy 24-hour run from the Red to the Dead Sea. Like, there was just absolutely bonkers.
Oh.
And he was obviously like holding on for dear life and looked down the embryo. And it was just like, and I think it's because I shifted my mindset that I was just like, I'm fed up of living my life on this, just this next cycle, this next cycle, this next cycle. You know, and then we've had that since, you know, with secondary. And I know that I've gone back into it in waves. Sometimes I'm fine, sometimes I'm not. And also as a military spouse, you're constantly in this 2-year cycles anyway, and you have to reinvent yourself. And it is this mindset of being held back. Just what if, you know, we can't do that because what if we get pregnant, or what if we don't get pregnant? What, you know, and it's really hard to shift that.
It is. And you know what? It isn't always easy to do the big things. It's not always possible to kind of move house, do the promotion, you know, not always possible to do those big things. But the internal micro shift part, and people don't pay attention to those because they want to see the external metrics. We're so in a rush, you know, to meet our outcomes in our society. We have forgotten how to slow down and pay attention to what we actually need day to day, to take our inspiration from nature, to listen carefully to actually who we're being day to day. And that's where that deeper shift comes into, you know. So it's not always a big kind of external transformation. It's often the smaller internal shifts into, like, you know, a more peaceful, self-compassionate mindset that allows you to see more joy, you know, bring more gratitude, that abundance mindset where you look for things to be grateful for. And, you know, I've had people say that, you know, somehow doesn't allow for grief, or it doesn't allow for the truth of feelings. And that's not it. You know, you must feel your feelings. You must allow space for grief if that's what you need. And you need to open up your mind to look for the things that are going to support you in processing those big feelings and all of that grief. And, you know, gratitude and abundance mindset are really powerful ways to do that.
Oh, completely. I love gratitude, and I've started to get a lot more into the whole abundance mindset in the last year. And in life, in work, and it is incredible when you start to be open to these things that previously you just weren't aware that you could be more open to. those things come to you, just even just little daily things. It's just switching that mindset, isn't it? And I think people who are more inherently half cup full do that more naturally.
Mm.
Whereas I think people who are more half cup empty, it is easier to kind of not do those things as inherently, you know, to look at life, oh, it's raining, you know, and concentrate on the rain rather than, oh, I can jump around in my welly boots, or like I can cozy up in front of the fire. It gives me, you know, it just those little things
Yeah.
makes a big difference.
Yeah, and it's important to say it. This isn't toxic positivity. This is
No.
allowing your mind to function in a more positive way to allow you to see opportunities and potential that you otherwise wouldn't. We have a filter system in our brain that's always filtering out things that are non-essential to our survival. So if we are consistently filtering out things which actually are not deemed important enough, like the things to be grateful for, that the opportunities that might be there, if we're not training our mind to look for those, then they will be filtered out. You will not see them. You won't be able to see the welly boot joy or the, you know, the other things that you could potentially call in when you're not actually actively letting your mind, you know, your brain be trained up. And you can train it. That's the brilliant thing. You know, we've got this incredible piece of kit in our heads that most of us are only using a tiny part of, but we also have an ability to link that up with our other senses and our other abilities to, you know, to process and see things in new ways. And that, as I say, I just find completely endlessly fascinating, and will always want to absorb more information on it and read more about it. I'm a total personal growth geek.
Oh no, it sounds amazing. So tell me, you are doing a free 3-day event, aren't you? The Exhaustion Remedy. So that's coming up soon. What is that about? Tell us a little bit about it. You know, who's it for? What will you be doing in that? And how can people sign up?
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this. I've run it a couple of times before, and it's always an amazing experience for people. But I love doing this because it brings together like-minded people who are on the same experience. So it's for anybody who's feeling exhausted through the process of trying to bring home a baby, because, you know, I was there too. I get it. I've been there, but I've also come through the other side, and it was before I knew how the story would end. So it's if you're feeling exhausted by it all, you know, financially, emotionally, physically isolated, lonely, all the things that we feel, there's no kind of criteria. So, you know, if you're quite early on in your story, you're welcome. If you've been doing this for years, you are welcome. You know, we really do focus on an individual experience through the whole thing. And I will be doing a live morning inspiration call every day on Zoom, bright and early. Is at 7:15 a.m. every morning. There will be replays if you can't make it live, but do come live if you can. There will be an audio pet talk to listen to at any point each day that you want to. I recommend that afternoon slump at around 3 when you right. You know, you've kind of forgotten the inspiration from the morning and you're like, oh, hang on, I've got that audio pet talk to listen to. It's only 1 or 2 minutes. And then there's a journal prompt each day as well. So we'll be taking people through a process. The first day is based on truth, so honoring your feelings. The second day is around processing those, and I'm giving you lots of ways that you can actually process those feelings. And finally, the third day is fresh. So we'll be looking at ways to actually, you know, that's a really good day. People love that day. Like, how do I actually feel less exhausted? And then finally, on the evening of the Thursday evening, we're doing my masterclass, which is the big calm reset. So that can be kind of a really beautiful full hour experience for people to come in and let me hold the space for an hour and really show you a little bit more about, you know, there is a layer of soulfulness in my work, and that's going to be infused throughout that masterclass. So that's what it is. And that's, yeah, I can't wait to run it.
It sounds very good. Can I come?
Yeah, by all means.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And what date was that? That's in October, in a couple of weeks' time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 21st, 22nd, 23rd of October.
Perfect, because this is coming out next Wednesday the 15th. So if you're listening, it will be in less than a week's time. So if you're listening on Wednesday, it'll be out on the Monday. Is that right?
I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Wednesday, Thursday. That's right.
But you know, if you are listening to this, you know, and we're already started, do join us, because you can catch up. And there's no, you know, if you just hear it on the Thursday, then just come to the masterclass. That's fine.
Oh, fantastic. And have you found people who have come along to that, they've come away and it's really inspired them, and it's kind of like, has it kind of opened them up to the work that you're doing, and how, it can provide them with a new way of looking and considering their fertility journey?
Oh, absolutely. We have people saying that they've never felt so supported than in these few days. And what it does is because there's a lot of noise out there, isn't there, in the fertility world, and it's quite hard to find like trusted people, but it's also difficult to find spaces which are focused on a positive way through it, which it's not a toxic positive space, it's a deeply honoring their experience. So that's what's quite different about it, is that it's a calling together of like-minded people who are not willing to continue to feel like they've lost all control and all ownership of this season of their lives. And that's amazing. Like when you see other people who are doing, and we have a community as well, which this year will be hosted on the Instagram broadcast channel, which I've actually already opened up so people can come and join in there as well. And I'll be dipping in with voice notes and inspiration throughout that time as well.
Oh, amazing. And so can people come wherever they are on their journey, if they're already doing IVF, or, at any point, it doesn't really matter?
Any point, doesn't matter. No, secondary infertility, absolutely important for everyone to get the support they need.
Okay.
And also, if people are thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm, I get this all the time. People are like, oh, I don't know if I've been through enough, or, I haven't been through, I haven't had a miscarriage. Honestly, if you're trying to conceive and you're finding it really hard, you're really welcome to come. There's no criteria.
And I was about to say, actually, even if people just started their journey, wouldn't it be great if people did this at the beginning, before they got to the point where it was dark and they've been through all of this? If you kind of did this at the beginning, maybe it would make their journey shorter or more manageable, because they get these skills at the beginning of that journey.
Absolutely. I really wish I had known it before I went through all those rounds of ovulation induction, where I just completely lost my mind. And it really, it can really change the experience deeply. And it's not just for that this time of your life. It will serve you going forward. My clients stay with me for years once they've started this work, because they're like, oh, I can use it when I'm pregnant, I can use it when I'm postpartum, I can use it when I'm trying to make a decision about it. I'm like, yeah, it's for everything. Don't wait around anymore. Come and learn it. It's life-changing.
Amazing. And so then from that, I know that you're going to be running your 6-week course, which you mentioned earlier. So you're going to be doing that. So maybe you could walk us through what that's about, how that kind of facilitates the transformation from exhausted to kind of like empowered. And
yeah, so this is honestly like just comes straight from the heart, this course. So as I explained, that where it came from, so it's called Reclaim, because I just feel like that's what it is. It was a reclamation of my, mind, body, and soul, from not just fertility, but like everything else that in my life I'd felt like I hadn't claimed as my own, or I hadn't let the, some parts of myself kind of really shine and develop and be my full true self. So anyway, the 6-week course, which everyone will be invited to join, will be led in a similar way. So we'll be doing weekly Zoom calls. It's a full kind of comprehensive course that people have access to, which walks people through that transformation of, what I'll share in the remedy is really the jumping off point that we need to really be doing every day. The Reclaim course takes you through that deeper transformation, everything that I found myself in my own experience and that I've now supported so many other people with. And we time it with the new and full moons, because I am a moon geek.
very appropriate recording then on the Hunter's Moon today.
Yes, we are. We love the one.
Oh, yes. Biggest moon of the entire year.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it looked amazing last night.
I didn't see it.
Oh, it was just coming up over the hills outside my house, and actually my husband was like, "You've got to go and see the moon." So I went there. He was like, "Oh, that's good ones." But yeah, so it's a layer of connection which I just don't see enough of in the fertility world, or I either see that it's very spiritual and maybe doesn't appeal to people who don't resonate with that. Or, it's almost the other way where it's just logic and just, information, which of course we need, but without blending the two and without blending, that practical information, that mindset work and neuroscience with that extra layer of, connection both to your true self and, a greater power of the universe. It's special.
Oh, I'm really excited for all those people who go along to obviously the 3 days, but then definitely find out more about the 6-week course. It sounds absolutely amazing. It really does. So how's it? Well, you've just explained, actually. I was going to say, how is it different from other mindset courses or fertility support? But yeah, you've just said the fact that you're weaving through kind of like the spiritual with the mindset.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, what sets it apart. But
Yeah.
because I feel like, because I've been doing this now since 2020, and it actually has had over 1,000 people go through this course, I've seen the transformation. I feel really very confident in how many different stories it's worked for, so I have supported people who have been through the most devastating loss, you can imagine. I've also supported people who haven't ever been pregnant. I've supported couples. I've supported people going through donor or same-sex couples. It doesn't really matter what exactly the, its circumstances are. It's that shared desire, that longing for a baby, that is the thing that we focus on, and that inner world, that inner perspective that is available to all of us to explore and shift. And it's just something magical about kind of what happens when we get together on those calls. It is really, that community element is something that we've lost as well in our society, that ability to, learn and grow and develop with a group element. If people don't want the group element, they don't need it, you can go through it on your own, be under the radar. It's totally up to the individual.
And I was gonna say that, actually, I imagine the community, kind of that community feel where people feel that they are with other people. And I know that for myself, with that, when I've run, group courses and things, that people feel that they're not alone, even though they don't know those other people there, to hear their stories. And to, when people ask questions, it's like, oh, even if like you don't have that confidence to hear other people going through that, not that you want to hear other people going through the pain and stuff, but it's just, you're not alone. And it's okay to feel these ways, and you can make that, I think, is really, really empowering.
Yeah. The connection with others is really strong, when we're going through this, and also that kind of inspiration, if somebody else has actually managed to do one of the exercises. And I get people to do quite a lot, like it's quite an action taking course, Like,
Oh, that's good.
yeah, some of it is kind of rituals and things that they may not have really explored before. So when you see other people who are like, oh, I didn't think this would actually make me feel better, but it really did, and like sharing a picture of them doing the thing, and someone else thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do it too then. And then they do it. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, that was actually really powerful. Amazing. What's next? It's a really, it's actually quite a big part of the course, which I didn't expect when I first did it, but it really is.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So what 3 things, because normally I quite like it so that people listen to podcasts, they've got kind of like 3 things maybe that they could, or even 1, but just something that they could implement today that might support their mindset around fertility, something practical.
So I have this thing called the Daily Fix, which is a really simple little exercise you can do every evening. And that is, you can get a piece of paper or your journal or literally anything that you can write on, grab a biro, and you're going to just scribble down gratitude and just write down 3 or 4 or 5 or however many things you want that you feel grateful for that day. The next thing you're going to do is write achieved. And this can be the smallest thing. So if you have finally put that wash on or put your clothes away, the floor robe that has been sitting there for so weeks, if that's gone in the cupboard, fantastic. If you finally kind of posted your verbal card you've been meaning to do, anything that you've achieved that day, write it down. Because it's a way of training yourself to be your own cheerleader, to say, well done, you did that. And like, it's no small thing actually to manage these little things. And could be a big thing, I mean, if you're a woman in business like me and you finally launched your course like I'm doing, write that down. It's amazing. It takes a lot. Write it down. Like anything you've achieved, write it down. Then the next thing that you're going to write down is just your tomorrow. So you write tomorrow, and it's going to be 3 things that are going to support your well-being. So not your to-do list, not, oh God, I really need to do blah, blah. No, this is your 3 things that are actually going to support your well-being. So if you might be, really aware that you're just not drinking enough water right now, like maybe just write down water. Maybe write down, get outside for a walk for 10 minutes, whatever, just 3 things. And the reason I do that, rather than personally, this works for me, rather than using, some people use habit tracker, I find because of the way I'm built, I'm not very good at kind of sticking to like the same thing all the time. I like to mix it up. But the consistency is that daily check-in of like, what do I need today? What do I need today? And then finally, it's just intention. How do you want to feel that day? You want to energized, you want to feel supported. Do you want to feel in flow? Write that down. And that's actually a 5-minute thing that you could do each day that actually begins that process of training your mind to look for the things that are good, to cheer yourself on, to reach for self-compassion, to be focused, and to support you in looking outside of the kind of endless what ifs or fear-based thoughts that we do often lead with when we go through infertility.
Thank you. I think they're really, really helpful. And I know that people will find, to be able to go away and try that out will be amazing. So thank you. And I know that you've got some other resources on your website. I was having a little snoop around. I know that you've got the Fertility Life Raft podcast, which we were just talking about. And maybe tell us just a few about those. I will pop all the links and things on the show notes.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So I've got like a free downloads and low cost downloads on my website. So if you go to fertilityliferaft.com/everything, everything's on there. And what was the other question you just asked me?
About the podcast.
Podcast, yeah. Losing the plot here. Yes, the podcast. So we just brought that back after I had a little break, and I've been speaking to some amazing people. I did a sleep episode the other day with this really cool coach who I just thought was the best. So have a listen to that. And then, personal stories as well as always the focus on kind of the work that we do with mindset and well-being.
Amazing. Thank you. So as I said, I'll share those on the show notes. So a question I always close with for those listening today, if you could take away, or if they could take away one thing from our conversation today, what would that be?
I would love for people to know self-compassion is your superpower. And when I talk about self-compassion, I mean thinking of yourself as important enough to spend time with, checking in, using that daily fix, that is part of it. Like looking at what is the most important thing for you day to day is what you're saying to yourself and how you're saying it. It will transform your life.
Thank you. I think that's a really, really important thing and really good thing to finish on there, because I think all too often we do feel like it's such a huge thing. We don't spend enough time on ourselves. So yeah, thank you very much for that. So I'm so pleased that you're here on the podcast today. I literally am over the moon to have interviewed you, and it's a real honor. I know that you've got so many gifts, the kind of like the spiritual, just positivity, not positivity, but just abundance, and so much that I look up to. It's just been fantastic to have you on here. And I know that many women listening to this, hopefully you'll go and sign up for the free 3-day exhaustion remedy event, and I'll pop the show notes in the link. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolute pleasure. Honor for me too. Thank you so much, Lizzie.
Take care. See you later.
Bye.